Baruch Hashem, I've gotten the basic picture of the Mesilas Yesharim. And before we go on in this critical first parak, I wanted to share 2 sessions to kind of balance things out and deal with some basic issues which come up. And through dealing with both of them, I think we're going to get a far more shlemistic a picture of how things work, and ultimately, hopefully, in the Mesilas Yesharim's deep de'ah, hashkafa, and understanding. We explained that the way I understand the parak, the idea, is that a person has to have an awareness of his obligation and where he's heading in life, and then the answer, in a general sense, as we said, to where you're heading in life and what your obligation is, it's to get to Olam Haba and get to the place of your ultimate pleasure, which is connection to Kadosh Baruch Hu, as we'll see more in the parak, and the place is in Olam Haba. So now, this very much, as we've said, puts man in the middle. Our job, right? Shalom lo nivra elasane gal Hashem lehenos miziv shchinaso, shezeu tanag amiti v'yidan agadim kol adim sheichon limatzei. Now, listen carefully. It's not just that that's a philosophical statement of why we were created. In the context of the paragraph, it sounds like that's what I'm supposed to be thinking about, and that's even my obligation. I'm obligated to get to the situation where I let HaKadosh Baruch Hu make me happy by being connected to Him, and I have to be thinking about it all the time. And that's the sod of Chassidus, and that's the shorish of Avodas Tzmima. So one issue is the philosophical issue, which that's really why, that's what it's all about. I was created for myself. Wasn't I created to give God honor, as it says in certain psukim? That one we dealt a little bit with already. I don't want to deal with it more. What I do want to deal with is that, how does this fit with the work being lishma? At the end of the day, I'm working for myself. And we have a Mishnah which says, Al yutu kavanim hamishamish zerav manas kabo pras. Don't be like telling them they're there to receive a reward. But here it seems like my whole idea is I'm supposed to be there thinking about the reward and thinking about the end game, etc. So maybe it's not a reward, etc. But how does this work with that concept of lishma? And not only is the question presented by from other mishnayos and other sources, etc. like this, really the question comes up, what I like to call minei, from a careful reading of the Mesilas Yesharim himself, not in Klach Pischei Chachma or one of his Kabbalistic works, from a book called Mesilas Yesharim. In Parak Yutes, in the middle, long parak on Chelkei Chasidus, which is important for our future answer in Chelkei Chasidus. So I'm going to explain to you now the inyan of Kavana. And I'm going to talk to you about Lishma and Lo Lishma. Omnam Vadai, now those who will stick with us, hopefully we'll get there together. But let's see, we'll go into this more beyond in the future. Be'ezer Tzurenu. But Mish Miskam Avodah, so someone whose Kavan is Avodah, is L'tayr Nafsho L'fnei Boro. He wants to cleanse himself. L'man Tizke L'sheves Espanov. B'chlal Yasharim V'Chasidim. In order, I want to be together with Rav Moshe Feinstein and Olam Emes. I want to be with Rav Shteiman and Rav Volba in Olam Emes. I want to be with Moshe Rabbeinu, David HaMelech. Maybe I won't be in their category or their statement, right, or their seats. Okay, but that's where I want to be. Lachsus b'noam Hashem levaker beichalo lekabel hagmul asher b'olam haba. Right, that sounds like real connection to the Bronner Shalom. Lo nuchal lomer. We cannot say shia kavana zu ra. Yes, that's ra. Achen lo nuchal lomer gamke, but we can't say either shetia hayoter tova. That's not the best kavana to have. Yad shadam miskaven letovas atzmo. So you're still talking about yourself. It's you to get to that place where you want to get to. That's your job. That's what you're focusing on. You're focusing on yourself in some way. Acha kavana amitis. What's the true kavana? Hamatsuya b'chasidim asher tochu v'shtad lasiga. What we find by chasidim that have worked hard to get to this level. Hushiyah adam ovid rak leman asher kvodo she'yitbarach v'yigdal v'yirba. All I care about is kavod shemayim. That's what's on my mind. You have to have real love for Hashem. And what concerns me, and what's on my mind, and what bothers me is that Kadosh Baruch Hu's name should be great. And with star, I'll call Shimad Mimenu. And when I see a lessening Kavod Shemayim, that lessens me. That's what I'm thinking about all the time. I'm reminded of Rav Moshe Sher, the the amazing leader of Agudas Yisrael in America, one of the greatest lay leaders in Jewish history, we can arguably say. They had written, I think he figured out the gematria for the next time the Siyam HaShas was going to be. And he wrote down gematria Kavod Shemayim, something like that. His mind was, how do I bring Kavod Shemayim? How do I make Kadosh Baruch Hu's name great? Not my name great. Ki az yavod avodaso l'tachzeh shlefachot mitzido. I wanted that, at least for me. I have in mind, I should bring Kavod Shemayim, right? I can't control the whole world, but at least when they look at me in my corner, I'm working for this. I'm not detracting, God forbid, from Kavod Shemayim, and I'm adding Bezrat Hashem to Kavod Shemayim. And it bothers me. Why are they missing the point? Not for them, we'll say, not because I care about Klal Yisrael in this point, right? In other places it talks about that. I care about Kadosh Baruch Hu's name being great. Okay? So here he seems to say clearly that the kavanah is to forget about yourself, right? The lo lishma is that I'm thinking, what's lo lishma? Not that I'm thinking about getting parnasa, not that I'm getting about kavod, not people honoring. The lo lishma is getting to Olam Haba, getting to that state of hana that we're talking about here. And the lishma is totally forgetting about yourself. So how do we resolve this? So I'm not sure. I'd like to share one hatza'ah, one possibility, and it's something to think about. And I'm sure people have written about this. I haven't seen anybody. I don't remember anybody writing with this. So I'm trying, and tein l'chacham v'yachkam od, as the pasuk says. I share with the wise and be wise together. I think the answer is very possibly that it's like he's saying, and the placement in the Sefer is critical here. One statement was in Perek Aleph, and one statement was in Perek Yutes. One statement was the beginning of everything, and one is in Chelkei Chasidus. At the beginning, the Yisod and the Shorsh that's going to get you, yes, to great things, is to focus on yourself. Yisod HaChasidus, v'Shorsh V'Tmimahu. You have to know where you're heading, and you have to know where you're getting to, and you have to know what your obligation is, and you have to know that you're in the center of that. That's how you start, and you have to start like that. If you don't start like that, you have no drive. You have to put yourself in the middle. It's like we say often in yeshiva. There's a very, very common statement that madrichim and mashpiyim, Rosh Yeshiva, mashkichim, Rabbeim tell their guys, it's your job to make yourself as big as you can be. You have to be thinking about yourself, right? A person says, like, I'll take a chavrusa who's a lot worse than me and who comes late, and I'll just catch him up the whole time. That's your job now, is to make yourself great. You have to put yourself in the middle a little bit. But that's not where your end point is. Your end point is higher kavanas. But the beginning kavanas have to be more basic kavanas. The more beginning kavanas has to be, because that's being realistic how we are. Our initial starting point about people is thinking about ourselves. And if we don't deal with that and take that into account, we're not going to get anywhere. Ratzon, desire, is Lashon Ratz. I've said it before. It makes you run. Ratzon is a tzinor. The letters change. Ratzon, tzinor. It's a pipeline. When you have a ratzon, when you have a desire, you run with it. I have to bring a wonderful story about Rabbi Yisrael Salanter and his students, which brings the point exactly. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter had a group of students, Talmidim, and they were going to make a beis medrash where everyone's learning Lishma, with the right kavanas, whatever they are. Ayin Nefesh HaChaim, Limud Torah. And Rabbi Yisrael came there. Now you have to understand, Rabbi Yisrael was great in Midas, he was great in Kavanah, he was great in Torah. He was the Gadol Hador. We think one of the Gedolei Hadoros. We don't think it's obviously one of the Gedolei Hadoros. Brought Musar, was metaking the whole door in a certain way, giving them new ideas and new Kavanah. There was a Gaon in Torah also. And Rabbi Yisrael saw his Talmidim learning Lishma, and certainly they were coming on time, and they were arguing probably, and they were sitting and thinking and learning. But he said, listen carefully. He said, Lishma yesh kan, Torah ein kan. Lishma I see, but Torah I don't see. There's no fire. There's not enough. Right? You're being too lishma. You're being too religious, so to speak, and you're not getting enough into Torah. And here's the point: that's not going to get you to the end point of being a Talmud Chacham or a Gadol B'Torah, whatever level they're on. So the Chazon Ish said every Bachur Yeshiva needs, I think he said, 2 kapiot of kavod a day. He needs 2 spoonfuls of kavod a day. Well, kavod's a bad thing. You're teaching people to work with kavod. That's how you have to start. You have to start lo lishma. It's a deep shanim mitoch shel lo lishma ba lishma, not just on a specific mitzvah, but the mahalach has to be lo lishma ba lishma. And therefore, that's perhaps what the Mesilas Yesharim is saying. The Yisod, V'Shorsh, and not just the Yisod V'Shorsh, of great levels of Chasidus, V'Shorsh Avoda Tmima, is that a person focuses on himself and gets into Avodas Hashem and understands. Now, what are we talking about? We're talking still a high kavana. I'm working for the next world. I'm working for Dveikus Hashem. I'm putting myself in the middle. I want to get to the greatest hana. Not the hana of sports, not the hana of a steak, not low-level hanas, not silly entertainment, not slapstick humor. I want to get to the hana, the truest hana that is, the hana of Dveikus of the Eibishter. It's already a high level. But yes, I'm in the middle. That's my lo lishma. At a certain point, I'm going to get bigger than that. I'll get past that. I'll grow past that. But I have to start with lishma. And therefore, I have this yisod in other places and proofs to it. Our starting point has to be lo lishma. If I'm understanding the Mesilas Yesharim correctly, it has to be. That's what gets, like Rabbi Yisrael's story, that's what gets you going. A person's just thinking lishma, he's not going to. There's a famous story, I'll leave out the names, but it's a famous story, you can see it online. Rabbeim Shapell was speaking to one of the great fundraisers of the Olam Yeshivas, a person who's a big Talmid Chacham himself, and he said, how much of what you do is lishma and how much is for your own name? He said, 98% is for me, 2% is for lishma. And Rabbeim sharply said back, Chabal the 2%. If you would have, if we would have 5 other kolim, the person, a tremendous producer of yeshivas and kolim, things like that. You know, when you're thinking about yourself, you produce. When you think about the Rebbeim Shalom, okay, you'll go slow. Look at government offices, right? I'm just working idealistically. Everybody knows the business sector works more seriously than the public sector. We have to put all we can into Avodas Hashem. We have to put all we can into getting to the Olam Haba. Before that, we have to start with something else, which is really just understand the reality of this world and the next world and things like that. So we need reality, we need ourselves, but of course, eventually, through that, we get to the high level of Lishma. Yisod, v'chasidus, is to think where we're headed and to think about ourselves, where we're ending up. End up, make something yourself, be something, be close to the Baruch Shalom. Do that. You've done that for a long time, that Yisod, that Sharish, now you're ready to go to the next level. Lishma, only think about the Baruch Shalom. And we also have moments and times, like the Nevesh Chaim says, when we can think about only about the Baruch Shalom. But for a long time, the focus has to be on the reality of me wanting to get to the greatest levels I can be. Me wanting to get to the greatest levels I can be. Don't push yourself or to others to Lishma too quickly. Be careful, be great, and Bezrat Hashem will get there.